Hi, it's Patrick Daniel back with Patrick Daniel Law on the legal ends. This is obviously anniversary month. It's the 14th anniversary of my law practice. We have several people that are coming up to discuss the various history regarding my, I guess, law school career or childhood career today, because it's my mom, Libby Power, as we affectionately call her, Nana. So, we are going to, I'm not really sure what we're going to discuss because I'm kind of more of a question recipient today than a question asker. So I won't really be interviewing my mom. I think we'll more along the lines of be interviewing me. Um, just wanted to announce out there that my wife, Nicolette, gave birth to our little boy, Bond, um,
July.
Friday, July 3rd at 8:34 p.m. And he's happy and healthy, and all he does is eat and keep everybody up. So we're doing good. So anyway,
We can get started.
yeah.
And for all you NFL fans out there, I sort of feel like Saquon Barkley and J.J. Watt's mom when they did the soup commercials. But anyway, with that being said, Patrick was the firstborn and also the first grandchild on both his dad and my sides. Those were the days when nobody knew the sex of the baby before he or she came
Really?
out. Yeah, that was in the olden days. And I was
Did you not tell, or did you just not ask?
no, they didn't have the answer. You had to
Oh.
wait.
Okay.
So when Patrick was born, I said, "Is it a little girl?" And the doctor said, "Well, it looks like a boy to me." And my mom, since I was the oldest of three daughters, said, "Oh my gosh, a little boy? What are we going to do with a boy?" And then my dad said, "Well, honey, nothing but silk is going to scratch this one." It was in New Orleans, Louisiana, or that area, Lakeside Hospital for Women. He was due in November, but came early on October 20th, and he's been running ever since. Started walking at 9 months, et cetera, et cetera. It was a time, though, my parents were living in New Orleans also, and my dad was the coach of the New Orleans Jazz, which is an NBA expansion team. And
Now it's the Utah Jazz.
yeah, now the Utah Jazz. And who was the most known player that played for him?
Pistol Pete Maravich.
Yeah, Pistol Pete was on the team. And after 13 games, my dad got fired. So he had 3 years left on his contract, but Patrick was born, and granddaddy to Patrick started taking him places. What are the places you remember and things you remember doing with Dad?
I mean, I don't necessarily specifically remember, but I mean, y'all have told me I used to go to Jackson Square to feed the pigeons. We used to go to the airport to watch planes take off. Sorry, this is a little surreal, me talking about myself. This is not a topic that I really like to talk about, but I guess it's a necessary evil, so to speak. What else we used to do? I don't know. This is so awkward.
Well, Granddaddy and Mimi ended up buying a place in Florida so that they could.
What was that?
That was when you were probably 1 year old.
Oh, really?
And he had his little riding cap, and they'd take him down to Florida, get out his little golf clubs. And then at that point in time, Patrick's dad and I were relocated to Shreveport, Louisiana, where his sister was born, and he started preschool. And then we went on to South Louisiana, where he entered kindergarten, and we lived in Lafayette. And that's when you started your sports, which I think you're still a main, he loves to work out. That's kind of a thing for Patrick. But what sports do you recall doing, and what do you like? And you got some good guy friends out of that
I
still.
mean, golf, basketball, football at one point, tennis. I would go hunting with my dad. I don't know what else.
Well, you played soccer.
Soccer. Yeah, that's where I met one of my oldest friends, Rafi Leger. I don't know. This is again so surreal and embarrassing. So where do we? I guess next, you and Dad got divorced, and you moved to Dallas to go to law school at SMU. My mom's a lawyer. For those of you that don't know, obviously none of you could know because this is the first time we've discussed my life, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it. So my mom, when my parents got divorced after, I don't know, how old were you? 23 at that point, right? Just,
No, I wasn't 23, but I was in my mid-30s.
my mom, just so all of you know, this is an interesting story about her. When we moved to Dallas, she went to get her license done there and intentionally smudged her birthday so that she would look younger, and they actually got it wrong by about 4 years on her birthday. Have you ever even corrected it?
It's corrected now.
Is it? All right.
Now, at this point, I guess I don't really care anymore. I forgot
Right.
about that. That was tampering with the government document.
Yeah. Allegedly, this occurred.
Allegedly.
So she went to law school at SMU, and go ahead.
And then Patrick walked me to school the first day. I was really kind of nervous. I had to take cheerleader off my resume. They said that didn't help with my application to SMU. But
Don't let my mom fool you. I mean, she graduated with like a 3.98, like my wife did from college, and had like a 178 on the LSAT. So don't let her fool you into thinking she didn't, after like 12 years of being out of school, scoring probably the top 1%, both in college and on the LSAT. So she's pretty smart.
Well, I've got a good fan over here, as you can tell. And Patrick continued his assertive, winning ways. He went out for the baseball team at middle school, McCullough Middle School. And
That's not accurate.
well, they had a candy sale for the baseball team.
That was in Lafayette.
No, it was in.
Yeah, it was. I'm just telling you.
Okay, well, I guess my age has caught up with me, but there was a candy sale, and guess who won it?
Yeah, I mean, but it was, when was that? That was like when I was like 10. I mean, nobody cares about
I thought you, anyway, I thought it was important to say that he excelled and is a good salesperson, and he can sell a jury today, in my opinion.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I did sell a bunch of candy bars, that's for sure. But, I think that goes to, if you knock on enough doors and you try to sell enough, or you try to work hard enough. My dad always told me, if you work hard and take care of people, good things will happen to you. I firmly believe that's accurate, but there's no mystery to selling candy bars or anything else. It's hard work. Everything's hard work to be successful, I think, and then once you have success, it's, making sure you make the most of that success, which is hard to do. So anyway, moving on, at that point, I went to Ole Miss.
Right before that, he moved back with his dad in Lafayette after his sophomore year in high school. He needed a firmer hand, I think, than I was giving him. And then you went to Ole Miss.
Then I went to Ole Miss, which I was not exactly a dedicated student, but then again, you didn't really have to be to go to Ole Miss. It was pretty easy. I finished there, and I went to Mississippi College School of Law for a few reasons. One, because, as I said, I was not exactly a dedicated student at Ole Miss. So I got into Mississippi College School of Law, and I studied really hard. I made Law Review. I was associate editor of Law Review. I was chairman of the Moot Court Board. Finished in the top 15 in my class. I was on a dean's academic scholarship and living stipend after I basically barely got into law school because I was not a dedicated student. What inspired me to be an attorney? I honestly don't really remember, but I think, this is so stupid, I really think I actually remember watching LA Law when I was younger, but everybody really told me that I think I was never willing to take no for an answer, and not really willing to not argue over anything I felt relatively passionate about. And I think the same holds true today. I mean, I really have a tendency to overspeak my mind, if you will. I think you see it on the show with respect to how I feel about Donald Trump, among another litany of topics like Black Lives Matter. And I think those are all traits that do make me a good attorney. I think the most critical and important thing I think you can state in your life is that you got to work hard. There's no mystery to success. I tell young lawyers that all the time. They're like, well, what makes you a good lawyer? I mean, I do think you have to be naturally talented to be a litigator, but I think at the same time, you got to work your ass off in whatever you do in life. And I don't think there's any fooling other people. The people that have success as a consequence of hard work, initiative, beating doors down, not taking no for an answer. I think the greatest misnomer about plaintiff's attorneys is that, oh, these are the people that finish at the bottom of their class. The really successful plaintiff's attorneys that I know finish at the top of their class, actually, but just are more interested in helping people than defending people. I think it's really important that people actually understand that. Really good plaintiff's lawyers actually finish really high in their class. The guy who trained me that worked with my mom at Wendell Turley's office, a guy named Todd Tracy, is probably about the most intelligent person I've ever met. I mean, he's brilliant. And he finished at the top of his class at Oklahoma State, or Oklahoma Law School, and went to work for a really big defense firm like I did. I went to work for a defense firm right out of law school. And, the allure of the defense firms when you're in law school and you make pretty good grades is that they're willing to pay you a lot more when you get out. And I kind of found out after that it's kind of a pyramid scheme that, you're really working at the bottom to bill hours for, the attorneys that are above you on the food chain and yada, 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 and I don't know, I've never really liked doing it other people's way. So as a consequence, I moved on, in 2006 about, once I finished practice, once I went into practice, and I really think it's 2006, maybe 2005, I'm not 100% sure. We've gone with 2006. I know it was July 4th.
And that was back in Lafayette, where he went out and opened his own office after working a short time for another plaintiff's lawyer.
Right.
And that office, I can remember like it was yesterday. You rented a small space, I think, in someone else's office.
Sublet space from someone else that was not even the size of this room.
I remember he paid $750 a month. Yeah. And the big purchase was, I remember going to World Market and getting 2 chairs to put out in your little reception area where there was a desk that Laverne lay and I polished so it would shine. And if you got a client, they would come in and have a place to sit. It was really.
I certainly don't remember any of that. I just remember the office was really small. But, you go out on your own and you really don't know what it takes to run an office or to have a practice or to do any of those things, because if you did, you probably wouldn't do it. So that was about 2006, and that was 14 years ago, and it was a situation where for probably, I think it was the first 8 years of my practice, I never took a vacation. I never took any time off. I worked about 7 days a week, about 14 hours a day. And, at some point along the way, you get a little bit of a reprieve, but there's a lot of ups and downs. And there's, times during your practice where you want to quit practicing, and you think you've made the wrong decision, and it's really hard. It's a tough job for us to do, because it's not always easy, and you don't always get outcomes that you want to get, whether it's on a daily basis or relative to a certain case. There's just certain things that you can't predict. But the way to eliminate most of the risk as best you can is to work really hard. And that's what I've done. I try to hire people that are intelligent to work for me, that are dedicated. My wife has kind of reinvigorated the firm from the perspective of team building. I've always ran it like a dictatorship, not a democracy. She's better at making everybody feel included and making it an inclusive environment. And the thing that we really try to work on here at the firm, as you can see by us doing all this stuff, is a sense of community and a sense of family. And I'm not always great about it because I'm a lot more focused on really the goal rather than I am a lot of times the journey. And I think that's one thing all plaintiffs lawyers are somewhat guilty of, or lawyers in general, but it's something I'm extremely guilty of, is that I forget about the journey, and it's hard to believe it's 14, if not 15 years, 16 years, 16 years later, if not maybe 17, that I've been doing this. I mean, I think it's crazy. I've been practicing a lot longer than that, but
and then you opened your office over here in Houston.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're okay. And we opened my office here. I don't know when. I can't remember. It was probably when, I don't know, 7 years ago, something like that. When before my little boy was born, and then I went through a divorce. I won't even discuss that. and moved back to Lafayette briefly, but kind of toggled between Lafayette and Houston, and moved back to Houston when my little boy was born because I was over in Louisiana for like back to back to back to back trials. I had like 4 in a row or something like that. It was insane. And worked there. It was me and my dogs.
Pebbles and Oscar at the time, 2 little Yorkies.
That's a whole nother story.
That's the really soft side of Patrick.
Well, yeah, I mean, dogs have a pretty soft spot for animals in general, but, that was a period of time for about a year that was pretty awful. I mean, I was excluded from the birthing room by my ex-wife. It was a bad situation, but I got my little boy Luke out of it. Luke is a pretty amazing kid. He still lives with his mom in Fort Worth. And like I said a second ago, we recently had a baby, my wife and Nicolette and I. So she has 2 girls from her first marriage, Mila and Lola. They're 9-year-old twins. I now have Luke, Mila, and Lola. Luke is almost 7, to be 7 November 14th. We just had our baby, Bond. So Nicolette and I decided that the name Bond was based on how we've tried to bond our new family together. My wife is much better than I am about running a business and doing those sorts of things, and is really good at keeping things in perspective. My wife and I, she's going to kill me for saying this, actually met on Match.com, and she asked me out, so she'll never live that down.
Well, it's working, I guess.
Yeah, like anything else. There's good days and there's bad days, but, she is really good about reminding me about 2 things. One, you've really got to pay attention to the journey, because if not, you're going to look back and it's going to be gone. And that's why I was saying earlier, it's hard to really believe it's been 16 years. And I look and I go, what did we ultimately do? I mean, it's great to work hard and do all those things because there's a time and a place for it. But at the same time, if you do have a family, you've got to learn to balance things. I remember there was this guy that I used to do some work with. He would get to the office at the crack of dawn. I mean, like 4:30. And interestingly enough, my wife is a morning person, and she and I were so diametrically different when we met, because I'm not a morning person, not at all. But I am now, because she's kind of beaten it through my head. And, the busier you get, my life used to be completely, revolve around me. It was me and my 2 dogs for the first, I don't know how long it's been, 16 years of my legal life, which was probably the first 13 years of my practice. And you have to learn to pivot and include other people in your life. And the reason I bring it up is because, again, it was about us and about, me and 2 dogs. I had complete and total autonomy, and I worked all the time and enjoyed working all the time, even though I hated some of the days along the way. My mom was always there for me. My mom was always extremely supportive. My mom was there when I had $5 in my bank account and had to make payroll, and I've made some really bad hiring decisions in the beginning, and I'm still not wonderful at hiring. I think we're a lot better about it now. The interesting thing is, you learn over the course of time. I'm still really, really, really bad about turning over control. My wife is extremely good in terms of running our business with how she delegates. Celia, that's here producing today while my wife is at home taking care of our baby who doesn't do anything but eat and cry. Is a good example of that. She empowers her staff. And, my wife, when she was 21, was making, $1 million a year running 4 boutiques, and it's because she works her ass. She's the hardest working person I've ever met. And she also empowered her employees, who all, as a consequence, are still in touch with her. And she can count on for anything. I mean, Gordana was her assistant and is still to this day one of her best friends. It's funny because, she's helped Nikki so much along the way. I mean, she's the one that Nikki goes to still, because Gordana just had her baby. Congratulations, Gordana and Nick. like 2 or 3 months ago. So Nikki still goes to her for, tell me about strollers, tell me about high chairs, tell me about all the baby stuff that I have zero interest in. And, what I would say is, when it comes to your partner, be careful who you pick and don't pick quick. Really understand who it is that you're getting in bed with, for lack of a better way to say it. Because you need to have somebody who is going to believe in you, just like your clients need to believe in you in your practice. But, make sure that it's somebody that believes in what you do too, because they've got to buy in. It's not easy because we work really long hours, and you got to work really long hours. My mom worked for Wendell Turley in Dallas, a very successful trial lawyer. When I say trial lawyer, I always refer to plaintiff's attorneys because I think those are the true trial lawyers. Wendell was the first guy on earth ever to bring an automobile products liability case. What that is in fact, that's how he met my mentor, Todd, which is somebody that worked with my mom at Wendell's office. And that's how I ultimately, met Todd. And Wendell brought the first airbag case ever. I mean, he was a pioneer, and I just admire the creativity. And you never, of all the people that I've met along the way, but you never, ever, ever know who you're going to meet. For example, my partner, Randy. Randy applied, to come and work for a position I was trying to fill a while back. And it's, he's a credit to my wife, because my wife changed the culture. And I don't think Randy, I don't know what it is, but I think the entire culture associated with our firm now and the persona that we put out is very positive. It's very encouraging to others to come and be part of this group. And that's not something I cultivated. It's something she cultivated. And I'm so thankful because Randy's been such a blessing. He's a wonderful person. For all the heartaches along the way, there's a lot of positives too. And, I know people out there, particularly during this time, are focusing a great deal on the negative. God knows I focus on it almost every day. And it's really something I should look back to my friend Chris Shumber, who was on the show, and remember, he's the gratitude guru, and remember to be grateful for the things that you have, and always remember that if you work hard enough, you can persevere and overcome almost anything in your life. Have your faith in God, your family, and your self-respect. Those are the 3 things my dad instilled in me. And he wasn't always real supportive of my law practice. My mother always was, but I think, like anything else in life, understand that there's something you can find within every person, to learn from. My dad, I learned a number of different things from him. I learned from my mom every day. My mom is probably the most selfless person I've ever met, and I'm honestly kind of selfish sometimes, but I think I'm pretty selfless when it comes to my clients, and that's something I pride myself on. And I think in the end, that might be the most important thing as a lawyer you can ever give to a client. And it's selflessness, because as a consequence, you are there for them at all times, in all situations, and in every crisis. And if you are selfless with them, it'll make you work harder, it'll make you appreciate what you do more, and it'll make you more successful. And I think it's something that the longer you do this, the harder it is to remember. I worked for a guy who was just a total piece of shit. And he was the most selfish person. It was never about the client. It was always about him. And that's what made me want to go on my own. I just didn't believe in that. And I tell the staff all the time, always remember, we work for them. It's not the other way around. They came to us to hire us. We never hired them. And I think a lot of lawyers really forget that. And I think it's important. So,
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing about working for the client. Patrick had a pretty big burn case a few years ago, and he came to me. I stood in his office over on Boss at the time, and he told me the number that the
that's before
defense.
We went to trial.
Yeah, this is before trial. I know it's confidential. But he said, he looked at me, the same way he's looking at y'all today, and his big blue eyes, and said, Mom, that's just not enough for them. This won't make a difference in their life. And he was opposing some pretty big players, and he ended up trying the case and winning for his client. But Patrick had to be fearless to take that on, and I think that's another trait for a lawyer. So anyway, I'm proud of him, proud of our family, and as it's growing every day.
Yep.
And
Not growing anymore though.
we have 3 dogs also, but I'm keeping 2 of them now.
Yeah. Pebbles, still, Oscar passed away 2 years ago, who's a Yorkie. We have Brownie, who is a long-haired Chihuahua and is wild. And Ham-Hock Elvis Presley is a red lab. Obviously, the kids named that one. Anyway, enough about me. I honestly don't enjoy talking about myself too much. I think it's embarrassing because it's not about me. It's really about our clients. It really is. But everybody said that you guys should get to know me a little better and know a little bit about me and what it's like every day. And, you know, for those clients that do know me, I mean, I think they do know that I'm pretty selfless with them. You know, for example, Vic, I can't really name my clients, sorry, but there's some out there that I mean, I've developed a friendship with as a consequence. And, you know, you're a counselor, you know, that's one of the things a good friend of mine, Rex Morrow, always reminded me about is that you're not just a lawyer, you're a counselor, you know, and you need to be there for people. And I think that goes back to being selfless. It really does. All right. So if you have questions, let's take them.
Yes. Barbara Higgins says, have you worked together? And if so, how did you both handle that?
Okay. So when my mom was, I'll just get into it a little general. My mom actually came in and worked at my office. This is before I met Nicolette. Nicolette kind of runs our firm now, but for about
a couple of years. It
was, to say the least, I love my mom, but it was not a good working situation at all. We did not get along. And my mom, to her credit, because she's a mother and she's my mother, has a tendency, in her defense, to listen and then do what she wants. She doesn't really do as she's kind of, I hate to say instructed, but instructed. You know, she's going to, well, what do you think about this? Well, I think, and I want you to do it this way. She'd be like, okay, I'm doing it how I want, and I'm not telling you. So it created some hostility between us. So my mother helped out. She filled in, you know, and I think it was good for her at the time. You know, it was good for both of us initially. Yeah. You know, my mom was going through a pretty tough time, and it gave my mom a sense of purpose. You know, and it helped me. Long term, not the best idea. Not the best idea. So yes, we have worked together. Thank you, Barbara.
Okay. Kenya Copeland says, great conversation and encouragement. Beautiful lady. And then we have another question from...
She normally would have a wine in her hand. Sorry.
We have another question from Larry. What's the most important lesson you learned from your mother?
That's a good question, Larry. I think to treat people with kindness. The one thing my mom is extremely talented about is she's always nice. And I think she learned that from my grandmother, Mimi. Mimi is still alive. She's in Ruston, Louisiana. You know, my grandmother gives great advice. In fact, my wife and my 2 girls, when we went to pick them up from camp a while back, stopped and we talked to her on the way back. And I talked to her about, you know, things that were going on in my life. And the thing is, she, I think, instilled in my mom, we have a lot of women in our family. We have a lot of really strong women with real strong personalities. And, you know, my mom's got a very strong personality. And the point being, I think my mom is a very giving person and a very friendly person. My mom's very social. I mean, and I know that sounds funny, but the point is, my mom is always very kind. And I think I get the soft side that I do have from my mother.
Okay. Next question. Lizzie Daniel says, can you share what you learned from one of your early cases? how it showed you that you had different traits from other attorneys.
Well, I mean, I think it's the work thing. I think it's kind of general as to other cases, but at the same time, I think there was a guy that I worked for when I first started practicing named Mike Lemoyne. And Mike kind of taught me the analysis portion. But the thing is, there was a case that I had a really long time ago, and there was a female attorney, and I
On the other side?
and I realized that she was kind of emotional. So as a consequence, I would, God, this is really going to come out bad, but I think everybody should understand. I just would berate her, and I was extremely aggressive with how I practiced. And because I looked really young when I first went out on my own, I was extraordinarily aggressive and extremely argumentative.
He's learned better than that now.
I think there's a time and a place for each facet of how you practice is the point that I'm getting to. And you have to understand and analyze who you're up against and play to their weakness. But oftentimes it's their ego and it's their personality. And this girl would get emotional about literally everything. So I would just persecute her as a consequence. There's been other attorneys over the course of time that, lawyers for the most part are nerds on a power trip. And as a consequence, you play to their ego. And as a consequence, you go to them and basically, want to make them feel extremely important, want to make them think that everything is their idea. And as a consequence, you catch more flies with honey in some instances, but in other instances, you have to let people know that you won't be walked on. So I think it's, what I learned is that it takes different strokes for different folks in different situations, but you can't ever let anybody get over on you.
And we have another question for Miss Libby. What's your favorite memory of Patrick when he was a kid?
Who's that from?
Tanner Luna.
Okay, my favorite memory when he was a kid. Oh, I've got so many. I really do. I'm trying to think, okay, is kid under 12 or is that, I guess adolescence when you go, this is like a long.
Sorry, Tanner, it should have come with the definition of child. It's for her.
Kid was the
Or
term.
kid, excuse me.
Oh, I think probably when his little sister Lizzie was born, and he'd been, nothing but silk scratches him, king of the hill, ruler of the roost, and he became such a little helper and so willing. And even though it was a little sister, of course, he was hoping for a little brother. He ended up being very close growing up with his sister, and still to this day, they kind of get their wires crossed sometimes. But I think me remembering him when Lizzie was born and how really gentle and sweet he was with her is one of my favorite memories ever.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Nana.
We have a comment from Mariah Cook.
Oh.
She says she's watching the show and she says, "We loved having you as our lawyer. You're very selfless and great at what you do. Miss Nicolette has done amazing things for you and the firm, and I'm very appreciative for being able to work alongside with her."
Oh, you guys are sweet. Thanks, Mariah. Tell Kerwin hi.
We have another comment from Kenya Copeland. She says, "Congratulations on your new baby."
Oh, thank you. It's something.
He's a cutie.
And we have another question for Miss Libby. Why did you decide to be an attorney?
I decided to be an attorney when I went through my divorce after being married 15 years to Patrick's dad. And I had a elementary education degree with an art specialization. And just to be frank, I decided I wanted to be able to take care of myself and my kids and be financially independent. I had gone to Girl State years before and ran for governor at Girl State and liked kind of the judiciary
She likes to
and
be in charge.
political background of that. And I just decided that this was a route I wanted to take. And that's what I did. And then I did start out doing white collar defense work at first, and then as Linda Turley would tell me, I went to the God side and started doing plains work as well, and ended up also working with Tahira Merrick in Dallas, representing the victims of sexual assault, the priest alt boy type cases.
Okay. Thank you. Emma Caruth says, so proud of you all. Kisses.
Aw.
And then we have another question for you, Miss Libby. It says,
Grilling me.
what's Patrick's best quality?
Generosity.
That's a bad one.
Generosity. When I came over, I was looking through some old mementos, and I saw when Patrick was 7 at Christmas, I have a handprint. It's in this.
Go ahead.
If I can get off this.
We have children.
Christmas in 1982, and he was
First grade.
whatever, 7. He gave me this handprint, and on the back, you have to see, along with $3. And Patrick has continued to be generous, not just to me, but to his entire family, his wife, his children, my mother, his sister, and to his clients. He has always been a generous person. When there was a homeless guy on the street, he would want to stop and make sure if he didn't have any money, I would give him money. He's always very, very open-hearted and generous would be my answer.
Okay. We have our last comment from Ashley Fowler. Looking good. Both of you.
Our cousin. Thanks, Ash.
Hey, Ash, have fun in Florida.
And that just wraps up the list of our questions.
Okay. So from my family to yours, that's the legal lens with Patrick Daniel Law. Thanks to my mom, Nana, for coming on today and helping us out. So we always appreciate our family, but you know, for those of us that still have our moms, and for those of us that don't, remember, we all need to remember how important our parents are. You know, particularly for those of us that have lost someone. You know, my wife has told me to make sure I never take my mom for granted, and I could probably do a better job of that. But I appreciate you coming on the show today. I know it's not always easy for people to come and talk on social media, but at the same time, I appreciate you doing it. Thank you so much, Mom.
I love you, and thanks Celia and Patrick for the beautiful flowers and the crave cupcakes.
And that wraps it up.
Thank you.